Hey, I didn't see you guys there. There's this giant drone on my desk. Yeah, guess what? We're gonna be talking about the brand new Sony Airpeak today because I got one. And just to start it off, this is not a sponsored post. I paid for this bad boy all by myself, and Sony did not sponsor this video. Sony has nothing to do with this video, so I don't want anyone in the comments to be like, bro, he works for Sony. I'm a Sony artisan of imagery, but I did not get this for free, and these thoughts are just my own thoughts because you know what? I really wanted the Sony Airpeak, so guess what? I went out and I got the Sony Airpeak. There's a couple reviews out there. There's really not a lot out there in general, but there's some folks that are out there making comments about the Airpeak, and they're just like, bro, the Airpeak's, not great, blah, 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 blah. But they've never even flown the Airpeak, so I'm questioning, well, how do you know it's not great? And I can tell you why it is great because I've just flown with it for the last week and a half. And there's a lot of amazing things about this platform that I really like. There's definitely some features and functionalities that need to be improved. But overall, if you want the TLDR, this is an amazing drone to get. And I say that because there's a lot of possibilities that you can do when you hook up something like the Sony Alpha 1 and then a plethora of other lenses. So we're gonna break this down into 3 different categories. First, we're gonna talk about the concerns that you might have if you're thinking about purchasing one of these brand new bad boys. And then we'll talk about my initial thoughts and then the possibilities of where it's going. And then at the end, I'll show you some of the footage with it. And yes, I freaking love it. So let's just go ahead and break it down. So some of the top concerns from people that are out there, especially if you're on the fence about buying one, is the battery life. And what you've heard about the battery life is 100% true. It isn't that great and it definitely limits your flight time. But as it stands right now, I'm averaging about 9.5 to 10 minutes per flight, which isn't great, but it's not bad either, because if you compare that to the DJI Inspire, it's really only about 7 minutes behind that. The average we were getting on our Inspire 2 was about 17 minutes, so it's not that far behind. That being said, I think there's always room for improvement with the batteries. Sony is using eco-friendly batteries, still only half milliamp hours as a, say, a DJI Inspire 2 battery, which is at about 4,800 milliamp hours, and the Sony batteries are only 2,500 milliamp hours. The next thing comes up to be one of those things that it's either going to be a user error issue or it's going to be a defect with the actual drone itself, and that is the stability of both the gimbal and the performance of the drone. There's a couple videos out there from some folks, and they've had some landing gear issues where there's a lot of wobble and a lot of noise and sounds that shouldn't be happening with the Airpeak, and I think those are incredibly valid points to the system, but I also think that there's some user error involved with that as well. When it comes to the gimbal, this is not a gimbal that you literally just slap the camera on and then let it go. You really have to fine tune it. You have to, understand how to balance a gimbal, and that's one of the things that I don't think a lot of people who are buying the system fully understand. So let's just take, for instance, right here, this gimbal is perfectly balanced. I can put it in any direction and the camera is going to float there. But a lot of people that I've been seeing that have been using the Airpeak literally aren't doing any kind of gimbal balancing, and that is the #1 issue as to why you might be getting wobbly footage or vibrations in your shots. The next thing comes down to the different types of cameras, and I've been testing out a bunch of different cameras with this. I've shot the Sony a7S III, the a7R III, and this is the Sony Alpha 1. And by far the Sony Alpha 1 has performed the best, and that's due to the IBIS that's inside of the Sony Alpha 1. You can actually control whether it's turned on or off, but you can also set the millimeter range, and for some reason it just works so much better than the a7S III. With the a7S III, if you leave IBIS on, you're going to get a ton of wobble. It actually works better, in my opinion, if you turn IBIS off and then maybe do some in-post stabilization. But for the most part, after I've had this unit for about a week or so, I've really got the gimbal dialed in, and you don't need any kind of in-post stabilization. The footage looks absolutely buttery smooth, whether you're shooting on a 14, a 24, or even an 85mm lens. It just looks splendid. I'll show you guys some footage in a second of that. But then there's also some concerns that there might just be some manufacturer defects. And I know there's some folks that have had gimbal issues and drone issues with the landing gear. And again, those are all valid concerns. My first experience though, when I first got this thing, is that it's a super solid system. And I mean, it's carbon fiber everything. It's built well, and everything feels like it's durable and strong. It's actually pretty light as a unit just to pick up, and which is great because if you're trying to carry this on your back or with a couple of folks, you're definitely going to need some extra people for that. The next concern is there's a lot of features that may be missing from the current platform as it stands now, and I'll have to agree that there's definitely some things that are missing from this that you definitely would want in a system, but from what I can tell and what I know of Sony and addressing these concerns, I expect that they're going to be fixed in future firmwares or app updates. But the first thing is there's no way to really focus the system without using either a continuous focus in a zone mode or just manually setting the focus at a infinity and then guessing the shot from there. There's no tap focus in the app, unfortunately, which I hope Sony brings to the table. And you really only get the basic settings when it comes to actually configuring your camera. You get shutter speed, aperture, and ISO, and that's pretty much it. You can't really deal with any of the other features or functionalities of the camera. And I think that that's something that hopefully will be expanded upon in the future, so that depending on what camera body you put in there, the app will know what camera it is and give you those settings, because it'd be great to be able to change what type of footage you're shooting, whether you want 8K, 4K, 4K 60, 4K 120, 4K 24, anything and everything. So I hope that's something that Sony adds in the future, and I have a feeling that they will, because it's definitely something that it really needs to happen, because as it stands right now, you have to go into the back of the camera manually and set all of the functionalities up that you want ahead of time for each flight. That being said, there's also a couple other things like the missing tracking, so you can't necessarily have this track a subject, so you're going to have to do everything manually. And the other big thing that's missing from it is live waypoints. So if you're looking to actually plot a course from like just say A to B, and then you want to have the drone fly, you can do that, and there's a way to do that. However, I will say that it's a very cumbersome way to do it, because you actually have to go into Sony's Airbase app and then go to their website, register a mission, then you physically have to plot each keyframe and point, and it took about 15 to 20 minutes to do just to get one thing. And I hope that they really expand upon that in the future, to where all you have to do is pull up the map, click on two little different waypoints, and then the drone just zips off to that. Because ultimately, that's exactly what I think drone shooters want to see in the future. But I'm hopeful that Sony will actually listen to what the feedback that they're getting, and I think Sony's going to address these issues in the future, which is wonderful. Now let's talk about who this drone is for and who it's not for. For starters, this is not an Inspire 2. This is not something where you just whip it out and then let it fly. This is something that's going to take some care and some effort to put into it, because it is using a full frame mirrorless camera. Because the gimbal is separate from the actual drone unit, you're going to have to go in there again, like we said before, and properly balance your gimbal. That also means you're going to have to go into the gimbal settings, adjust and tune it to whatever camera that you're using. And I will say that you do have to do that pretty much every flight, because it's necessary, because every flight has a different load and a different balancing technique. So you may need the stiffness to go up, or you may need the stiffness to go down. And a lot of that is really dependent upon what lens that you're using. I will say that once you get it dialed in, it's kind of a set it and forget it sort of thing. You just have to attach the camera to the gimbal, adjust just a few settings and parameters, and it's really easy in my honest opinion, because coming from larger rigs that require something like a Ronin 2 or other gimbal, you really have to go in there and dial those settings in. That being said, it's not that difficult to do, and if you take a little time, you can really get it in there, and it's freaking amazing. This also isn't for just recreational use. This is definitely a professional grade system. This is something that I would put, it's above an Inspire 2, but it's below an Alta 8. So it's that nice happy middle ground where you can take this out there and really do this either by yourself or with a partner, and have dual drone ops happening. And it's a really fun flight too. I really enjoy taking this up there. This thing moves. It is so fast. We were doing about 55 miles an hour with this thing, just tracking along, and it was pretty badass. That being said, again, this is for professional use, not for a novice. So if you are a professional cinematographer, professional photographer, and you want to get the most out of your aerial shots, this is definitely the drone for you. And I was kind of skeptical when I first got this, but this minute I got it up in the air, it just felt so great. It is so responsive. It flies where you want it to. It gets that shot, and it just makes it a really fun time when you're out there using your Alpha 1 or your A7S III or FX3. And I have to say, it really is a pleasure flying around with it. Now, when it comes to the app, there's a lot of things that are inside the app that really are quite useful. You can literally have this thing set up ready to fly in just a few minutes once you have everything dialed in. And the connectivity from the drone to the iPad to the remote control, almost seamless. I've had a lot of issues in the past with DJI controllers not connecting or syncing, and it was always kind of a pain in the ass. But with this system, it literally just kind of works. And for that, I got to give Sony props, because it really works well. And I love that we can do dual operators with this, so someone can control the gimbal and I can control the flight, or vice versa. So there's really a lot of options. Now, what's great about this platform is that it's something that's going to be built upon in the future. If you think about it, there could be other gimbals that are added to it, other different devices and accessories that can be added to it, and different cameras that are going to be launching soon. And all of those things are going to help amplify what this thing can do. I think one of the biggest benefits is if you do use something like the FX3 or the A7S III is shooting at night. You can get super beautiful high ISO shots and it's going to look absolutely seamless. And it's hard to do with other drones, especially something like the Inspire series, because you just don't have that low light capability. With this system, you do, and it just looks amazing. Where I'm at, I can't fly at night because I'm in DC, and DC really isn't the best place to be flying drones. So I have to go out about 30 minutes just to go out and fly. But I will say that for any kind of production job that you have, where you have the authorizations, you have the waivers and the permits, and you can go out there and fly at night, it's definitely one of those things that's going to be exciting, because this thing is going to open up a whole new avenue of possibilities when it comes to low light flying. So I'm really excited for that. When it comes to the footage, my buddy Jeff and I spent the last week out in Utah capturing some amazing aerial landscapes and model shots utilizing the dual operator mode, and the results were pretty much out of this world. Sony will be releasing the full video to the production shortly, and I'm really excited to share it. Here are a few snippets of the clips utilizing a variety of lenses on the Airpeak. So overall, I think that my impressions of the Airpeak are that there's a lot of things that this drone does right, and I think there's a lot of things that in the future, once Sony addresses them, this will make the perfect drone for anybody that's in that mid-range professional level and they want to take their aerial game up a notch. But at the end of the day, I will say that there are definitely some things that could use some improving upon, but I'm super happy with my purchase. I think this is going to make for a great asset and a great tool when it comes to doing productions, and it's just going to add a little extra flair. So I'll be putting out some more videos in the near future, a couple of different sizzle reels actually showing you more footage and an actual production, and then we're actually going to dive deep down into it, how to balance the gimbal properly, and then how to set up your flight controls, and then how to take it out for a spin. If you guys have any questions, just put them down below. I'll be happy to answer them, and as always, if you like what you saw, please like, subscribe, and as always, happy shooting. Thanks everybody.